It's a glorious and lovely Sunday. It's the first Sunday in November, and it's time for our Sunday sermon. We've got some good things going on in the wrestling world, much better than last week. I'll start off by talking about Smackdown. I went back and watched it. I was not home again to live tweet it or watch it on Friday, but after reading the results, I was really excited to see what I had missed, and I was pleased. This was, considering the circumstances, and I'll touch on those in a moment, this was what I think SmackDown was wanting all along. Now, I don't know if it's what the network wanted, but it's what I, as a fan, wanted to see. So, without getting into too many details, of course, you can go back and watch the episode or read the results yourself. But what I enjoyed most was seeing the NXT stars get their time on another station, on another network rather, and get plenty of time to showcase their skills. That, above all else, made the show for me. And now you might say, well, these are USA stars being featured on a Fox show. Yeah, that happened, but I'm glad it did. That was the shot in the arm that SmackDown needed. And not to say that it's going to be that way every week, because of course you can't have the NXT stars on SmackDown every single week. But it would be nice. I mean, I knew it took a shakeup outside of WWE's capabilities to have this happen. But it was a nice circumstance to have this happen. Now, I know, of course, the actual SmackDown stars were caught in Saudi Arabia after Crown Jewel, which I'll get on that in a moment as well. But going back and talking about Crown Jewel as well, I did not get to see that live because I had work to do. But going back and watching that, it was a pay-per-view. It wasn't as interesting as SmackDown was, quite honestly, but Crown Jewel did what it set out to do. It put on their show and had lots of spectacle. The matches turned out to be okay. Was not exactly a memorable pay-per-view. It was not something, honestly, that I would watch multiple times like I would some of the other pay-per-views in the past. But I watched it just to say that I did. And even though it could have been better, it was a well-produced WWE show. So I'll give that to them. But SmackDown was much better. SmackDown, had that quality that we've been missing for the past couple of weeks. And I do think it was in part to the NXT stars on there. Just touching on the circumstances in Saudi Arabia, you've got a couple of rumors out there and something that might be the truth. Who knows? And with WWE, I think one thing we have to remember is they have the clout to put forth any kind of story they want to. And depending on how much research you do, you can take WWE's word for it, or you can look deeper, you can look at what talent's saying, and you can make your own conclusions from that. Quite honestly, the only thing that I've officially seen is that the plane that the stars were supposed to be traveling home on had mechanical issues. That's their story, so to speak, and some are disagreeing with that. But I have no reason to disagree with that. If the plane was having trouble, the plane was having trouble. But it does seem convenient that WWE could put that kind of story out and try to push the blame on somebody else, as opposed to the other rumors that are going around, which are several. You have people saying that there was some kind of disagreement Vince McMahon had, ended the pay-per-view a little early, and caused them to, I guess, strand the superstars there. While one thing we do know is true is that Vince McMahon and others happened to leave early while leaving the others behind. That's one thing that, we know happened, and you can't really spin that in a positive way. You can say, well, Vince is needed back home. Everybody's needed back home. These people have lives to get to. Nobody wants to be sitting on a plane for 6 hours, even though they're being well taken care of. Nobody wants that. So, yeah, that is something that does make WWE look bad, regardless of whether you're looking at the mechanical issues or whether you're looking at it was some kind of a disagreement. I don't think that Vince needs to be necessarily leaving the guys high and dry like that. Even though they were supposedly okay, um, it is a little bit of discomfort, no matter how much they take care of you, knowing that your boss left you. The captain did not go down with the ship, so to speak, here. So I do think WWE has kind of some issues to address with making their talent feel necessary, because who would want to be that person or those people left behind and feeling like, oh, okay, well, I didn't get on the good plane to go with the good jet to go back home with the A-listers, so I must be on a different level, and I think that's what a lot of them are feeling right now. If you go on their social media, that's the feel that you get. So, in WWE's situation, I guess, and they'll, this will blow over as everything does. But for now, though, it doesn't seem very fun to be working there. And, we can say, oh, well, that's what they signed up for. You sign up for this job, you're going to have travel issues, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, they have the money to make things as right as they can for their people. I don't see why there couldn't have been more done, basically, for those that got left behind for hours, while others were able to take off. But I guess that's the hierarchy that they have to deal with in that company now, and we'll see where that goes. Just like everything else, that's kind of the mantra. That's the way that we look at things with WWE. See where it goes, see how it shakes out. Most of the time, it doesn't really shake out in their favor, but they always find a way to spin things back into their favor. So, if you're a fan of WWE, that, kind of makes you feel comfortable. But for the rest of us that kind of have branched off into other places, you kind of wonder how much happier would they be back on the indies, or how much happier would they be in AEW. But only time will tell. Other things that went on. Last night I watched the MLW SuperFight, and that was a damn good show. That was their debut pay-per-view, and looks like MLW has some good partnerships coming up in the future with AAA out of Mexico, and that's going to be coming soon, looks like, with a lot of their talent being shared with MLW. But as far as that first pay-per-view, I mean, the matches were solid. My favorites in particular, you had Filthy Tom Lawler taking on Timothy Thatcher, who's become really one of my favorite guys to watch over the past couple of months. I've gone back and watched more than a few Timothy Thatcher matches, and kind of makes me wonder why he didn't get that over in America, so to speak, but in Europe. I mean, the guy is just a badass, and maybe that's something that'll translate in the future. I think, Thatcher's not that old. I think, what is he, in his mid-30s? And you've got guys over here in the States that are well into their 40s, still making a great name for themselves. So I think if Thatcher were to come back over full-time to the U.S. and to sign on with, say, AEW, or maybe even go to NXT, I think he'd have a great run there. But sometimes you'll see that with a lot of wrestlers. They'll have a bad start over here in the States. Maybe the crowds just don't take to them right off, or what have you. But after some time abroad, they can start to get a footing or a good solid base. Drew McIntyre is a good example of that. He made it all the way up to the WWE main roster and kind of floundered for years. Then found his footing on the indies and abroad, comes back, gets a big push. So yeah, I think that Thatcher, I think it's his time to come back, if he's ready. But hopefully he will, because I would like to see more U.S. matches with Thatcher. We've seen the one last night on the MLW pay-per-view, and a couple in Beyond as well on Uncharted Territory. And I haven't seen a bad match with him yet, even though I'm aware that in the past that there were. I think his time has really come around, so hopefully that'll happen. See him back in America full time soon. Other matches on the MLW SuperFight that were really good. You had the Stairway to Hell match. That was fun. Mance Warner, and Mance has had quite a week coming back from his injury. He was able to win that match last night. Lots of blood. I mean, Mansoor got busted open, but it was still a hell of a fight. And just the rest of those people um, on the card for the rest of the matches, I think matches like the ones they had where you had a main event like LA Park, and LA Park's a legend, and going up against, legendary names, somebody with a name like that too, that's going to be a fight. And it was. I mean, you had people getting busted open with railroad spikes. You had people getting busted open with the ringside bell. It was blood everywhere. And not to say that you need blood to have a good match, but it makes for a damn entertaining match. So yeah, big bloody pay-per-view, lots of good fights. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of MLW. I haven't really mentioned much of them because, quite honestly, I haven't really seen a lot of MLW, and that's kind of my fault. I just hadn't taken time out of watching everything else. But after seeing that last night, yeah, I'm going to take the time out to watch more MLW in the future. So yeah, that'll be fun to see. Looks like they've got something coming up on Thanksgiving night as well. It's been a while since we had wrestling on Thanksgiving night. You had the Survivor Series years and years ago that would air on Thanksgiving night live, but seems like that's been kind of a dead issue for a long time, so it's good to see MLW kind of picking back up on that slack. Other things going on. As far as social media, I did touch on the issues, the travel issues that we saw over the past couple of days with the WWE stars, and it's interesting to see how people are responding to that. You kind of have the two camps of the people that kind of defend this man's decision to go without the full roster. Basically, he took just select few and went off. But and then you have the other side that kind of wonder what really happened. And it's I don't want to be too hard on WWE. I know things happen, but I'm kind of on the side of the people that are critiquing them. I mean, I'm not going to sit and take their excuse of, oh, well, the plane had mechanical issues. That's just a really easy way out, in my opinion. You can't explain the boss kind of deserting the ship with that explanation. Yes, good explanation. It explains why it would take so long for them to leave, but I'd like to know why, only certain people, like I said, get to go home while the rest of them are kind of just left to wonder and wait. So that's the issue I think that really needs to be spoken about. I don't really know what happened behind the scenes with Missing Man and the people, I guess, that were bankrolling this, the royalty that were bankrolling this, but I'd like to know more about who's taking care of the talent, who's making them feel like they are a high priority. Because after this weekend, I kind of see what they're saying on social media. I wouldn't feel like I was a high priority. I wouldn't feel like I was, one of the better ones on the team if I had been left behind to sit on a plane for 6 hours knowing that the A-listers had already gone home. So that's the issue that's going on. That's what everybody's kind of talking about right now. And, maybe the truth will shake out, or at least the truth that WWE pays for will shake out and be the end-all and be-all of it. But in the meantime, I'm just looking forward to seeing what Smackdown, now that everybody's back home and happy, or at least back home, what SmackDown's going to do to follow up from this really good show that they had this past weekend, and see if they can keep that momentum going. Hopefully they can. That was a fun show to watch, despite the circumstances. And then, of course, you had a really good Halloween episode of Uncharted Territory leading on into next week, where it looks like the cream of the crop, so to speak, are shaking out. People that have had big wins on Uncharted Territory for Beyond Wrestling this season 2, are the ones that are sticking around. So next week's episode looks like it's going to have those winners, or people that have been winning so far, featured on the show, and maybe even people that have, just made their debut. But this next 6th episode of season 2 of Uncharted Territory, it looks like they're going to keep this really high pace, high quality going. I have not seen one bad episode yet. So that's something to look forward to. NWA Power, that's also coming up this Tuesday. We still have Jim Cornette on commentary. Apparently there was an issue that went on social media this past week where I guess maybe he just got a slap on the wrist and nothing more. But it seemed like Dave Lagana had bigger fish to fry than to listen to the complaints. But as I will say this as a fan of the things that Cornette allegedly does not like, his opinion outside of NWA Power means little to me. As long as he can get on commentary, as long as he can do his job, I say let him keep it. I don't know how long he's going to stay there because I don't know how long he can, play ball basically on social media and keep from getting in trouble. But as far as the commentary team goes, I think he is something that they need. His voice is something that they need more than anything else. And to be quite honest, Jim's not that young anymore. Cornette's not that young. He really doesn't have that many years left where he can talk shit, quite honestly. I don't know when he's going to die. So, if the guy's going to die next 10 years from now, I'm okay with it. I know that sounds terrible, but let him have whatever spotlight he can before he needs to bow out. And he's going to say stupid shit. He's been saying stupid shit ever since I was a kid. He's been saying stupid shit for years. That's kind of his thing. It's just kind of sad to see that so many fans take that as gospel when they don't realize Cornette's kind of a comedy character himself. He's always been. But on NWA Power, yeah, keep him on color. That's what he does. He's a color guy. He's a comedy guy. He's funny. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll touch base with you in the middle of the week, see what else is going on. Be kind to each other, and have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.